Now, I want you to sit back for a minute and imagine you as a little kid learning how to ride your bike. When you first figured out how to get your foot down so that you didn't fall into the grass, or even worse, like fall and scrape up your elbows. Or the first time that you jumped off of a piece of equipment at the playground. Some of you may remember those experiences, but do you remember how you learned those skills? Probably not. And guess what? Me either. And the reason for that is that we put ourselves in situations and our brain and our body just kind of said, okay, I definitely need to learn this to prevent myself from experiencing pain. So we would fall, we'd have pain, and our brain would quickly say, let's figure out how to prevent that from happening again. One thing that our brain and our body learned very early on was how to absorb force, so that when you did set that foot down, you could easily balance on one leg if you were losing your balance on your bike, or if you were jumping off of something on the playground, you could maintain your balance, or you could be in control on one leg so that you could easily go into that next step and run to that next piece of playground equipment. What we definitely learned was we learned that if we didn't have that control, we would fall and it would hurt. So probably since about the age of 5, we really haven't given that skill a whole lot of thought because it's just kind of ingrained and very automatic. However, after you've had damage to your brain or your spinal cord, we just kind of sometimes forget how to absorb that force. Good news is, as an adult, we can regain the ability to perform this skill, and in return, improve our walking confidence and definitely decrease the risk of falling. So what I want you to visualize in your head is that scenario where you're stepping off or jumping off of a piece of equipment on the playground. Could you do that now? If the answer is no, don't go anywhere. Let's head on over and start the progression to get you back to that ability to safely land on one leg, control it, and be able to step off and go on to your next activity. All right, if you just watched that and had a huge panic attack, don't worry, because we have several progressions before you get to that point, but I wanted to show you that up front so that you kind of know what our end goal is. But of course, I know that many of you that watched that did give you a little bit of a panic attack because you're nowhere near that yet. So we're going to start out pretty basic. The first activity you're going to do is you're just going to do like a forward-backward rock. We're just learning basically just how to shift your weight from leg to leg. Now, what you want to try and do is, what the goal is we're trying to get to a point where you can balance for 3 seconds on one leg, and then same thing when you go backwards, 3 seconds on one leg, and then forward. This would be the initial step in getting to that leap. Now, I know what some of you are thinking, oh my gosh, I cannot even single leg stand for 1 second, let alone 3 seconds. Well, I still think it's a valuable skill because it's the beginning of learning how to absorb force and control your balance on that leg. My suggestion would just be to get in a corner or get near a wall and use walls. Now, the reason I like walls, and I always think it's worth me going through this explanation every time I talk about balance because I think it's so important, is that when you are near walls, you're less tempted to grab onto things. So, as I've talked about several times, we have different balance reactions that are kind of built into our brain. It starts with, if we lose our balance a little bit, our ankles will adjust a little bit. If the ankle muscles aren't enough to reposition our center of mass within our base of support, we go to some hip strategies. Then we go to a stepping strategy to move our base of support underneath our center of gravity. If all of those fail, we will usually stretch an arm out, reach for something, and grab on. However, if unconsciously we learn that grabbing onto something is really reliable, like 100% reliable, like we never fall if we just grab onto something, all those other balance reactions inadvertently kind of go out the window and we just get used to grabbing onto things. It becomes so ingrained that it really is unconscious, and anytime we lose our balance, we're going to grab onto something. Now, the downside of that is there is not always something to grab onto. So having that reaction as your primary reaction as you're falling is probably, and I'm not sure there's any data on this, but is probably how most wrist fractures happen from a fall. Now, the downside of a wrist fracture over a hip fracture, which hip fracture is the most common way or most common injury from a fall, in my experience, wrist fractures or even both wrists is a definite faster way to losing your independence. But that's just my experience. I think a wrist fracture, or in some cases what I've seen, 2 wrist fractures, is probably way worse. So why do I tell you that? Not to scare anyone, but if you are someone that you're always grabbing onto things, when I talk about getting near a wall and using walls as your safety net, I really think that that is a better way to practice balance activities, removing the temptation of having things to grab onto. So I know that was a little bit of tangent, but I always think it's important to go over. Hey guys, I'm briefly going to interrupt this video just to remind you that there is a PDF handout that goes along with this video that has all these exercises on it. So if you're finding these exercises valuable, if you are a gold or a bronze member, you do get instant access to the handouts so that you don't have to keep coming back and watching this video. There are other perks that go along with being a member, such as having access to our private Discord channel, and if you're a gold member, having access to our monthly lives and an entire vault of over 450 exercises that are designed to help people with mobility issues, restore your mobility, and improve your life. To learn more about those membership programs, head on over to rehab-hq.com, where we have a list of all the perks and a link to sign up. But now let's get back to the exercise. So if you are someone who's going to take me up on that suggestion of getting near a wall, my suggestion is that you put the wall on the side of the leg that you're trying to balance on. The reason for that is that another kind of safety strategy that we unconsciously do is we never get to the outside of our foot, because obviously our brain knows that there's no safety net, i.e. our other leg, to help balance us. I think that's one reason. I think there's probably multiple reasons why we kind of keep our weight this way. But in most cases, when people cannot balance on one leg, in my experience, it's because their center is to the inside of the foot. So you want to build a security on the outside of that foot so that you can really get that body positioned over that leg. So wall on the side of the leg that you're trying to work on balancing on, and just forward, backward shift. All right, next, if this is the involved leg, we're gonna go up onto, I would say, a 2-inch or a 4-inch step, and you're just going to step off. Now, the key things I want you to think about on this, because this is gonna become important when we get to the higher level skills, is as you're falling, I want you to think about getting your belly button centered over that foot, and as soon as your foot hits the ground, bending that knee to absorb that load. Okay, that's where a lot of people feel a little bit uneasy, so you'll keep your leg locked out, and that really it really decreases the stability you're going to have on that leg because you're not absorbing that force from the ground. So 2 things to think about. One is as you're falling, you got to already be thinking about where your belly button needs to be. Okay, so you got to be moving in that direction a little bit, and then as soon as you feel the foot hit the ground, absorb that landing. All right. Once you feel good going off of the side, now you're going to go off the front. And for a lot of people, this is a little bit scarier, so that's why I always recommend like going off of the side first. And I'm going to use this leg as that involved leg. Now you're going to go down off the front. Or I'll stick with the same leg so that I don't confuse you guys. But you're going to go down. Same 2 things. You need to be thinking about moving your body so your belly button is centered over the middle of this foot when the foot hits the ground, and then immediately bending the knee to absorb that force. And again, our goal is that we're trying to hold it for about 3 seconds. So what a lot of times people do is they just put that other foot down, they go back up and they do it again. Remember, holding it for 3 seconds is really what's keeping you accountable. Are you really balanced on that leg? If you can't hold it and you feel like you need to get this foot down right away, then you don't want to move on. You want to stay on this activity until you can land and hold it for that 3 seconds. Again, if you feel like you want to put this foot down, I would pay more attention to getting your belly button centered over that foot. Now, if you don't have an involved leg, obviously you want to do this on both legs. So if you're someone that's just feeling like you're getting less balanced overall, maybe just because of a natural progression of aging, then you do want to kind of try and do this on both legs. Land, hold it for 3 seconds. Still having the walls around you for safety. Hold it for 3 seconds. Now, once you get good at that, the next progression is we're going to actually try and get a little bit of air. Remember, our end goal is that leap at the end, so that I showed at the beginning. So now what you want to try and do is land and immediately pick this back foot up so that you literally are now standing on one leg, okay? So if at first you need to go down and then lift, do that a few times to get comfortable. Once you feel like you can do that, then you want to go and actually get a little bit of air where there's a moment in time where there's neither foot on the ground or on any type of a surface. All right, now once you get good at that, now we're going to try and actually do it without the step. Now the reason the step is first is because it helps you to learn how to go from a higher surface down. It's harder once you're on the ground because now you kind of have to think about two things. You have to think about propulsion and force absorption. So obviously you have to be able to get off the ground to be able to absorb the force. So I definitely recommend starting with the step. But now we're going to kind of jump off of 2 feet and try and land on one and hold it. If you feel like you can't do that, kind of do like a little jump. So I can keep this toe down back here, but you're going to kind of mimic a jump just to get off the ground, but keep this toe down. So this is in particularly a good modification for those of you that have like a stronger leg. You can kind of use your stronger leg to kind of propel you up, but yet you still have both legs on the ground for balance. And then you just want to try and come down kind of hard on the one leg. Everything that we've worked on up until this point still applies. Center your belly button over that foot and bend the knee on the landing. Goal is that you can hold it for 3 seconds. If you need to keep this toe down to start, definitely go ahead and do that. But once you can do that, you're going to take off and try and pick that back toe up, still holding it for that 3 seconds. All right, now we're going to actually get into kind of that leaping motion that I showed at the very beginning. Remember, everything's building up to that. So you're going to start on the less involved leg if you have a stronger leg. You're going to start with all your weight on that leg, and hopefully you can balance pretty good on that leg. If not, again, the wall is still here, and then you're just going to propel off and land. If you need to put that toe down to start, put that toe down, but try not to get all your weight supported on that leg if you don't have to. Toe down, just like a little kickstand for a little bit of extra balance. So you're gonna, so now we're taking off of one foot and landing on the other one. Center the belly button over that foot, bend that knee to absorb the landing. Center the belly button, bend the knee to absorb the landing. And then from there, now you can really go into the leaping. Start starting on kind of like the easier side would be, what I want you to think about is like you're just taking a step, like you're walking, only you're trying to take a bigger step. That's what, when people think leap, that's when they usually really get discoordinated. So I always just tell people, and it usually works pretty well, just think that you're walking and you're just trying to take like really big steps, okay? So that's the first step in the actual leap that I think is a good cue to focus on. You're just walking, but you're just trying to take a little bit of a bigger step. So you're just walking, you're just trying to take bigger steps. Now the goal is that you don't have to put that other foot down, so that this foot doesn't want to immediately go down, okay? That's what you're working towards. So you're gonna hold 3 seconds, and don't make the leap any bigger until you can at least maintain it for 2 seconds. You can at least maintain 1/1002. Okay, and so keep the leap really, really small. That's why I tell people just to think about walking. You're just walking, okay? Then once you get good at that, then you can try and take a bigger leap step, all right? So leap, land, hold it for 3 seconds, keeping that back leg up. Leap, land, hold it for 3 seconds, keeping that back leg up. Still thinking about all the same cues that we started at the very beginning. Belly button in the air. You have to be thinking about getting your belly button over that foot. And as soon as your foot hits the ground, bending that knee to absorb that landing. So in the air, you're already shifting your weight onto that leg. Now, you see that little adjustment? That's actually not a bad thing, and I actually let patients do that. That's a really valuable skill. You want to know that if you lose your balance a little bit to this side, that you have the ability to correct that and not fall. Okay, so you saw me adjust my foot a little bit. That's perfectly fine. Again, if it looks too easy, you probably don't need to work on it because you're probably not teaching yourself anything, okay? So land, hold it for 3 seconds. You almost want to actually feel like you're on the outside of that foot a little bit. So that's why I always recommend do it with the wall on the side of the foot that you're landing on to start, to really help you feel comfortable to get that weight shifted over. And then that is it for this video. I hope you guys found this video helpful. I hope that you will incorporate these exercises. I know many of you are thinking, oh my gosh, I'm never gonna leap. I'm 65 years old, or I'm 75 years old, or I'm 85 years old. When am I ever gonna need to leap? But it is so, so critical in decreasing your chance of falling if you do lose your balance, decreasing your chance of breaking a bone if you do happen to lose your balance that results in a fall, because you're going to learn how to slow yourself down so the force going into the ground isn't going to be as severe. And just like an added bonus, doing activities like this where you've got that increased load on legs does help to maintain our bone density. So there are a variety of reasons why I think these are so valuable. Don't forget, if you are a member, you do get access to a PDF handout that has all these exercises listed with pictures and descriptions on how to do the exercises, so that you don't have to keep coming back and watching this entire video. You can just keep that handout in your little therapy area in your house. If you're not a gold member or bronze member and you want access to this handout, head on over to rehab-hq.com, where you can learn more about our membership programs and sign up. If you're new to this channel and you haven't yet subscribed, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, turn on that notification bell so that you'll get notified every time I upload new videos. I enjoyed spending time with you all today, and I'll see you in the next video. Have a good day.